Alright, man.
Hi guys, how you doing? My name is Brent. I'm coming today from the B&H Used Department. Today, for Throwback Thursday, we thought it would be a great idea to talk about one of the most iconic cameras of all time, the Nikon F. And then eventually all of its brothers going up to the modern F6. One of the reasons why the Nikon F is so iconic is it was one of the first major production rangefinders that was adopted by photojournalists. Prior to that, rangefinder cameras were pretty much a status quo. These were phenomenal for up-close, working closest wide-angle lenses, but when you got into telephoto lenses, they were very limited, especially due to the rangefinder. The original adoption to that was something along the lines of this. This would attach onto the Nikon S and turn it into a reflex-style camera. The original Nikon F was actually just that. They essentially took a Nikon S2. This is a later model S3, by the way, in case anyone wants to get into that. And they added in the mirror box assembly. The way the camera loaded, all the physical functions and forms were very similar to the original S. But now we have what you guys know and appreciate today, a simple rangefinder, a SLR concept. The original Nikon F was introduced in 1958. This particular model is a Photomic, which would have came around in about 1965. That's when they finally added a meter on top. This was one of the first cameras ever used by photojournalists. Most of the pictures that you guys saw from Vietnam or other iconic things were either taken with one of these or like a rangefinder. Next in the lineup is the Nikon F2. This happens to be one of my favorite cameras. I actually own one of these very similar to this. This one has the DE2 finder on it, which is a non-metered finder, because back in the day we knew how to use light, and we didn't need anything like a light meter or anything like that to make an iconic shot. This guy would have came out in about 1971, and these were the workhorses for a number of years. This guy's got a 51.4 in there. This would have been a kit that pretty much anyone would have picked up and shot with. A lot of newspaper guys, really a beautiful camera. This guy over here now is the Nikon F3. This one is just one of the best cameras that was ever made, to be completely honest. It's one of the most reliable cameras. It was one of the first ones to introduce a automatic mode, like the auto shutter speed that you see here. It came in a number of different viewfinder arrangements. This one here is the high eye point. It was known for people with glasses because it's got a very larger finder. And then there were a number of other attachments such as a waist level, 90-degree prism finder, a whole bunch of different things. Very versatile kit. If you guys have any questions or anything, please comment or feel free to ask. The Nikon F. Yeah.
The film camera, isn't it?
Yes, sir,
Yeah,
it is.
we're just for live on Facebook right now. Just
Yeah.
these cameras.
Yeah. Kind of wild. I think this is the camera I sold to you.
May very well be. We actually have here one of the customers that sold us some of these cameras.
Right.
No, this wasn't mine, but it looks just like this. And I know the last two digits.
Anyway, the F3 is one of the first cameras that really became just an absolute legend from them. There's actually one of our customers came in here and told me a really interesting story once. He was in the press pool, and at the time, President Ford's photographer, who I believe was David Kermley, he was one of the first ones in the U.S. to get a Nikon F3. So the entire press pool is shooting the president, and then Kermley reaches into his bag and pulls out an F3. And the entire White House press pool stopped paying attention to the president and started staring at the camera. Really funny story, and one of the many cool things that you find out working here in the used department. It's a really cool kit. The F3, even though it was around for a very short time, sold millions, and these are a really popular camera. We sell a ton of these, and it's definitely a camera you should think about picking up if you're looking into getting some of the older Nikon F cameras. Next in their lineup, this guy would have came out in about 1988, is the Nikon F4. The Nikon F4 was a big deal because it was the first camera from Nikon to introduce multi in terms of metering option. Prior to that, everything was center weighted, or like that F2 over there, had absolutely no light metering. The F4 is also one of the first Nikon Pro cameras to offer autofocus. This one will work with all of your Nikon D series lenses in full manual, and it will work with your G lenses in in shutter priority or program mode. In order to use this camera, you do need to have a physical click on your aperture on the lens. This F4 has on it the MV21 motor drive, which put this guy up to, I believe, 6 frames a second. Really very cool camera, very fast. These things were, own the streets for a very long time, as well as the Olympics and anything else that you really needed a fast camera for. The other big thing about this guy is that it goes all the way up to 1/8,000th of a second, which is something that most modern DSLR shooters took for granted, considering that prior to that, these cameras would go up to maybe 1,000, 2,000 at best. So in addition to the multi-segment metering, you still retained the Nikon F interchangeable finder. So there were things like sports finders, waist level finders, a whole ton of customization that you could do to these cameras in order to make it work for whatever tool of the job you had. Next up, we're getting into the more modern camera. This is the Nikon F5. This guy would have been introduced in 1996. This was the first Nikon F camera to accept the modern G lenses. So if you have modern G lenses and you're looking for a film camera to toss them on, this would certainly be a good candidate. Something like this, or otherwise its baby brother, which is the Nikon F100. Those are also very much a very good professional level camera. It's very similar to the D750 or 800 compared to the modern D4, the D5 series, where you just don't have the built-in motor drive and the vertical grip and the level of weather sealing that this did. That was one of the big improvements on this guy. You also are now over to a more standard control menu and everything else that you would be much more used to if you're coming from a Nikon digital camera. Really just an excellent camera, very versatile, and you could hammer a nail into the wall with this camera, and believe me, I've tried. Lastly here, we have our Nikon F6. This guy was introduced in 2004. So yes, they were still making film cameras in 2004. This guy's actually even available still today. Essentially, internally, this is the same as the Nikon D2X, which came out at the same time. So it has the most advanced metering system of any Nikon film camera. You have full TTL with all the modern flashes, really advanced weather sealing. These cameras were made to take to the Arctic and beyond, and they can just handle pretty much anything at all that you throw at them. These guys are still available, and we do get them routinely in the used department, so it's a very cool camera if you have the budget for it. Personally, I don't, so this is actually the only one missing from my Nikon F collection at the moment. Just because they still do command quite a price because of just how amazing and modern these cameras are. Anybody have any questions about anything? Tell me where you guys are coming in from. Alright guys, well, this was a brief history of the Nikon F cameras. Leave your questions in the comments. We'll be happy to get back to you on them. If you own any of these, let us know. You know, it's always great to hear the history of some of these lovely cameras.
They're loving it. They're watching roll over. Guillermo says he's the its little sister and an F3 and he loves it. An FE too.
Awesome. Yeah, the FEs and the FMs are also really awesome cameras. Those are definitely, we sell a ton of those to students and people who are learning film, and they are just lovely cameras. The FM2, if you can find one, is also one of my favorite cameras besides this F2 and this F3.
I want to see the rangefinder too.
Yeah. We're getting some questions about this guy. This is a Nikon S3. This is actually a pretty cool one. This is a later production model. They actually reintroduced this in 2000 as a throwback model. So perfect for Throwback Thursday for you to be able to purchase. It's got all the frame lines of the original. Really cool camera. On here right now we have a 35mm 2.5, which is one of the rarer lenses that you can get for this guy. It's just a really awesome kit. Also though, the only thing about this guy is there is no light meter, so you got to get used to either using that meter app on your phone, picking up a nice Sekonic, or Gossen, etc., or, you know, just learn how to read your light. That was one of the things about most of these early cameras, where it's amazing when you get out there with a simple camera with no electronics in it, just how amazing of a photograph you can still produce.
Awesome.
Also, just to get back to you guys on this one, figured somebody would have a question about this. This is actually really rare and pretty cool. This essentially is the entirety of the Nikon F mirror assembly in this box. So this was originally how they made rangefinders into the first SLR cameras. Leica had something very similar, as did Contax. The original Nikons like this S were actually pretty much a direct clone of the early Contax cameras. Same with the Kevs and a bunch of other ones that I'm sure you guys at home are shooting with. Alright guys, so that's going to be it for me today. If you have any other questions or comments, please feel free to leave them in the comment section or come into the store and say hello. We're here at the used counter every day of the week.